back after 14 days, I believe. 13 14 days we've been away, but we are back. At least for a little bit. We'll be going back on vacation again around 4th of July, around that time. So early July, for at least a few days we'll be gone. But we are back. A lot of things to discuss here. We have College Football 27 news, EA Sports College Football 27 news. We have thoughts on the Joey McGuire versus Sark situation. We want to call it a situation. And, of course, we also have our team record projection series continuing with Texas. Speaking of Sark, Texas Longhorns on deck here. I am very excited about this show. Very, very excited. Of course, today, as I just mentioned, we are getting information on the college football video games. That's great. It's June now, by the way, so happy June. We are now well into hurricane season now. That started a couple days ago. So if you celebrate, then the world of meteorology, welcome. And also, by the way, we are also well into meteorological summer. How about that? So, yeah, hopefully you guys are having a good day wherever you are, wherever you're listening to this from. If you're listening on live here on YouTube or on Spotify or on the VOD. Thank you so much for tuning in. Of course, we do this show twice a week. Obviously, this week it was only one show this week. At least at the moment, it's one show. We might do something tomorrow, either an extra show tomorrow or we're phased at another episode. So our 2 shows per week. We'll just do one tomorrow, or we could do an extra pod. Something will happen tomorrow. Again, apologies for over the break. I couldn't get something recorded in time. I was going to on Friday, but just some issues came up that would not allow me to do that. So hopefully for 4th of July, I will remind myself to make sure there's enough time to start recording things ahead of time. So over the 4th of July break, you should get maybe an episode or 2, hopefully. So, yeah, we do this show twice a week here on YouTube, Thursdays and Tuesdays. We also have our extra pod whenever we can do that, usually on Fridays or on Wednesdays. Or I think in a week where we've done 2 of them. So, but yeah, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're not gone. We didn't go anywhere. I wasn't quitting YouTube or anything. We're just on vacation up in North Carolina for a few days, and now we're back. Had a fun time up there, visiting the mountains and whatnot. Very, very cool. Been hiking one day. But anyway, yeah. So we do this show again twice a week, YouTube and on Spotify. Live on YouTube and on Spotify. We post the episodes on audio only onto Spotify. And also be sure to follow us on X, Twitter. Be sure to subscribe over there. Well, not subscribe, but follow over there on X, Twitter. And then be sure to follow us on Instagram as well. There should be links in the description of not in the description, but on the channel bio, as it were. So just housekeeping notes there on as we are getting started here on this beautiful Thursday. High atop a nice, dry Jacksonville, Florida. Had a front move thing, and now we're temperatures in the 70s. It's nice, cool, and feels like fall. Almost feels like college football. Speaking of which, we're getting into. So let me get some water real quick, and we'll touch on this Joey McGuire, Steve Sarkisian thing, if you want to call it a thing. So while I was gone on vacation, of course, we had SEC spring meetings happen. I'm not going to touch on that. That's mainly just noise. I don't really care about that as much. And there's some folks are making a big deal about it. Some folks are reacting to it. That's old news. So we won't be able to talk about that immediately. But what we are going to talk about is this whole Joey McGuire versus Steve Sarkisian thing. If you haven't known, or if you need a refresher, I believe Steve Sarkisian made some comments, I believe, during SEC Media Days, saying something of the lines of, and this is not a direct quote, but off the top of my head, I believe it was something of the lines of, hey, if you're to put our, second and third stringers onto Texas Tech, or not on Texas Tech's roster, but I guess maybe that's kind of what he was referring to. But anyway, putting his second and thirds, Texas's second and third stringers, against that schedule in the Big 12, they would have done pretty well. And also making a response to that, Joe McGuire, I believe, said something to the lines of, hey, Texas is going to play us. Go right ahead. We'll buy out our G5 school. You can buy out your FCS or G5 school. So it turned into a whole mess, if you will, a big controversy, if you want to call it that. Over the break, when I first saw the story bubble up this time last week, I thought, okay, this is probably like just a noise, right? And it's just, coaches saying things and whatnot. But I saw a lot of folks were kind of taking it seriously. People were convinced to think, oh, yeah, so Texas and Texas Tech are going to play each other this year. They're going to find a way somehow, some way to buy out of their G5 games. I think Texas, if you look at their schedule, they play Texas State week 1, and they play, of course, Ohio State week 2, which if they were to actually do this, both of these schools buying out their G5 opponents, whether it's week 1 or week 3, that'll be very, very interesting. Having two non-con games involving power, just power four teams. That would be very, very weird. Don't see that very often these days. Looks like I think the exception would be like Florida doing that a few times with Florida State. But just to clarify, that is not happening. Okay, Texas Tech and Texas are not playing each other this year. Even though, yes, you've had Sark say stuff about it. You've seen Joey McGuire say stuff about it. You've seen folks in the media say stuff, oh, Texas Tech and Texas, they should play each other. While, look, there's two different ways you can look at it, okay? On the one side, you can look at it and go, yeah, it'll be nice for them to play each other. If you don't know, this is a rivalry, Texas Tech and Texas. I believe there is an official name, I believe. I'm not sure if I recall the name correctly. Look it up here on the computer. It is the Battle for the Chancellor Spurs. Yeah, so I was sure that's what the name was, but I just didn't quite remember. But yes, this is a rivalry. There was a lot of big, meaningful games of this rivalry in the past, right? The Michael Crabtree game in 2008. There's some other games that have been pretty close in the past, and that resulted in Texas Tech victories. So it is a pretty meaningful rivalry. They haven't played it since Texas left for the SEC, left the Big 12. It's been a few years, and given Texas Tech's rise and then sort of taking out the power vacuum left behind by Texas leaving, sure, there is probably some, hope that maybe in the future, maybe not this year, like some folks were suggesting, even some of the coaches. Granted, some of it was probably sarcasm a little bit, but there is some hope maybe in the future, maybe not this year, but maybe in the years to come. If you look ahead at Texas and Texas Tech's future opponents, there's no one really scheduled right now for them to play, actually, at least in the big non-con games, at least if I'm remembering off the top of my head. But there's possibility they could play each other, right? Hopefully on the campus and not at some NFL venue. But maybe in the future you can see that happen. So from that standpoint, while I would love for this rivalry to come back in a non-con fashion, it's not happening this year. In the future, yeah, it could happen, certainly, especially if, the schools are still serious about it and maybe this is their way of getting the ball rolling. Yeah, I'd love to. I would love to see Joey McGuire and Cesar Sarkisian once again on opposing sidelines in a rivalry game. I would love to see that, especially with all this talk going on. Now, the other part of this is, of course, the beef, right? The two coaches going at each other and saying, oh, my roster can beat any team that you play on your schedule and all of this, raw SEC and Big 12 propaganda. I love it. I love it. Not because it's, because it's real talk, what they're saying, it's actually real. No, a lot of it's sarcasm. But I love the fact that it's there, that these aren't coaches who are trying to be friendly with each other. We've seen that in the past, or you've seen folks like Josh Pate criticize coaches for being too, friendly with each other. And you see photos, like I think going back to last year, of Kirby Smart and like Kalen DeBoer golfing or whatever. Yes, I agree. I would much rather, especially rival coaches, I would much prefer them to be more not hostile to where they're going to like physically assaulting each other, but just verbal war, if you will, if you want to go that route, just verbally going after each other, saying, "Oh, my roster's better than yours," and all of this shenanigans off the field. That I would like. I would like to see that be more of the standard in college ball. You don't get it as much anymore. We have certainly moved past the era of Steve Spurrier, Les Miles, Nick Saban, even to a certain extent. Yes, I know it's only been a couple years, but he's retired now. But even guys like Steve Spurrier, Les Miles, Viber Trano, Urban Meyer, Jim Harbaugh, even now since he's left for the NFL, we have really missed this opportunity to have trash talk be back in college football. It just hasn't been around that much. I mean, yeah, sure, the players will get into it, especially in these in-state rivalries like the Miami, Florida State, Miami, Florida, Florida State. So you've seen it there. You've also seen it a little bit with Ohio State, Michigan. But any other of these rivalries, especially name any of these, especially in the Southeast, right? You have Clemson, South Carolina. Don't get much trash talking anymore, even from someone like Dabo, who loves the trash talk. But even with Shane Beamer, it's they're treat each other as friends, do the the handshake and do the photo propaganda and whatnot, the photo ops. It's just there is no trash talking anymore in college football, and that I will agree with Josh Payne on that. But there is no trash talking anymore in college football, at least to a large scale. So that's why I love this from that standpoint. Okay. So that I will appreciate, and also to appreciate at least the willingness to play each other again, at least as rivals, right? But like, just getting Texas Tech and Texas back on the field again, not a neutral site, but an actual home and away. I would love that. Same thing with Oregon and Oregon State, the Civil War. By the way, they're not playing each other this year. Hopefully in the future they'll play each other. Notre Dame USC, they're not playing each other this year. I would love that rivalry to be restarted. I love those schools to figure out a way to do so. Same thing with Texas Tech and Texas. Same thing with Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. I would love these schools who have rivalries or who have rivalries on their conference to start playing each other again. So I don't know why it's so hard to do it. I mean, I understand, yes, with future scheduling and whatnot, because of the way the sport works, we have to schedule things 15 years in advance. But in a perfect world, I would just love to have some of these rivalries come back that were lost because of conference realignment, and we will continue to see get devalued or continue to see go away because of the impending crisis that is the ACC going away. Which, yes, that is going to happen still. Yes, just because no one's talked about it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It is going to happen. Trust me. There's a reason why Josh Pate brought it up on this show Sunday. It's going to happen. We're going to see more conference realignment. It's going to happen. Just because no one's talking about it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It is going to happen. At least it's not right now. In the near future, it will happen. So, again, I would love to see these rivalries come back, whether it's Texas, Oklahoma State versus Oklahoma, Bedlam, the Civil War, Oregon State, and these classic rivalries that have gone away or are about to go away because of conference realignment. Find a way to do it non-con, right? Remember, most of these conferences require you to play one major P4, P2, whatever you want to call it, opponent. Just make it your rivalry game, no matter how bad they are. Just at least make one of your games that. Maybe another game with another big-time opponent. But, who's going to listen to me? Who's going to listen to some Joe Schmidt on the internet with 14 subscribers? I don't know. But that's my thoughts on the whole Steve Sarkisian, Joey McGuire thing. Again, on face value, I love the fact that trash talking is happening here. I love that. Even if they're not playing each other, I still like it. I also like the fact that even though, yes, they're portraying it as like a beef and whatnot, and they're going at each other, I do also view this as there is some movement, at least internally with Texas Tech and Texas, to play each other again. And the non-con. I think a lot of us in the room here who are not here with me would agree on that. We'd love to see that happen. So good for these guys to trash talk each other, and also good for the schools to, I guess, in some way behind the scenes, working on some stuff. Not this year, but maybe in the future, to play each other on the field. I would love that to happen. Again, if you're live here on the show on YouTube, welcome into the show. I mean, this is for Verticals Podcast. This is how we do it here. We do college football all year round. Yes, we do talk about Marvel and Star Wars, but that has somewhat moved to the extra pod. Now, look, if anything big happens with Marvel, like for example, whenever the Avengers Doomsday trailer gets released, we'll talk about it on here on the show, but obviously not today. But most of that stuff, like Buccaneers stuff, go to the extra pod for that information. At least for most of the time, we'll still cover the Bucs here. That's of all those three things that we do discuss. The Buccaneers they'll get coverage on here a little bit towards the end of the show, especially during the fall, right during the season. But yeah, again, if you are new here, welcome in. If you're a returning viewer, wondering where we were, don't worry, we're on vacation. We didn't go anywhere. We're not going anywhere anytime soon, except for, again, another vacation in a few weeks. And, any other, if there's any medical reasons, we'll do a show. Like if I have like a surgery for some reason, obviously no show. But other than medical stuff and a random vacation once in a while, well, yes, I'm not a big fan of taking vacations. But anyway, we'll still do them, and we'll still be here. We're not going anywhere anytime soon. So it's a water real quick and move on to our next segment, which I'm very, very excited to talk about. Not that we're involved with this segment, but who knows? Maybe we are involved. Just kidding. We're not involved, but in some ways we are kind of involved. But it's something that I think a lot of you who are college football fans are going to be listening and watching tonight, at least paying attention to. And if you know what I'm talking about, which is, of course, the college football video game. So as everyone knows, yes, the college football video game has been back for the last few years now. Of course, that's old news. But this year's game is coming out. And they're doing the reveal. EA is doing the reveal. Now, we're not a part of it. per se. We're not up to a level of like a Bordeaux or MMG or any of these other personalities. We're not up there. And EA has not asked us to be a partner with them. In the future, I would want to. You know, the invitation's up there for EA to do so, but we're not a partner with EA. With EA proper, we're not like we don't have. I don't have any first of I don't have any knowledge beforehand of what they're revealing tonight. Now, some folks do, like Bordeaux, for example. He does know what's going to happen tonight, obviously, or else he wouldn't be hinting at what's coming tonight. Nor would people like NMG and Eric Wayweather. So I'm not at the level of those folks. I do not have any insider information. I don't have any, any other like information I could give to you guys other than my own speculation and any of the other leaks that are out there. So as we dive deeper into this, I'm going to pull up the graphic here and we'll discuss as I go on my computer here and pull up these beautiful graphics we made with the help of ChatGPT. Yes, I know it's not the best. It is AI, but look, I mean, as someone who's a one-man band here on the show, we have to use the resources where we can get them, okay? Hopefully in the future, we don't have to use AI. We can actually do more proper graphics. But for the moment, at least temporarily, we're going to have to go that route. But I think you guys will at least understand it. You don't have to like it, but I think you guys will, somewhat understand it. No, that's not the one I wanted to bring up. That's the Texas market projection. That is next, by the way. We'll be covering that here in a moment. All right, I think this is the one we need. Yes, this is it. Okay. I'll move this over for you guys. You guys can see that. Okay, yeah, so College Ball 27. So we know the release date is going to be July 9th, which ironically is when I'm going to be getting back from vacation in July. So as I'm getting back from my 4th of July celebration shenanigans, we'll come back and the game will be out by then. So I don't know how in the world EA decided to time it out with my vacation. Again, I'm not partnering with them. I'm not an EA partner, but how about that? Right on time. So yes, we do know the game will be releasing on July 9th. By the way, on YouTube, if you're watching live, those screenshots, by the way, EA provided those to us via the internet. So we are using those on here. You can see we have a shot of Miami versus Notre Dame. We have mascot mashup with Puddles of the Duck and Ugo. We also have the image on there on the bottom. Yes, granted, these are cinematic images. They're not actual screenshots from the game. These are highly edited through Photoshop, but they do look pretty cool. So if you're wondering where those come from, those are from social media. Everyone's using them, so they're there. So again, the game is coming out on July 9th on Xbox Xbox Series X and S. That's the one I have. Also on PlayStation 5 and on PC for the first time in, geez, it feels like 15 years, it seems like. That actually might be the actual number. I think around 15 years. So, and it, of course, on the bottom there, it will be live streamed on the Madden YouTube channel at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 Central. So you can do the math there on which time zone, depending on which time zone you're living on, but at least for me, on the East Coast, 8 o'clock. So Josh Payne, if you're live on tonight, I would normally watch you, but I'm going to be, my priority be on this tonight. No hard feelings. I'll probably watch you tomorrow. But anyway, so what we know about the game so far, sort of what information we do know. We do know based on some of the leaks, again, some of this too will also be my speculation on what is going to happen. But I guess some of the news we do know for sure, and we'll get into my speculation a little bit sort of baked in. But the first big thing that did come out is, of course, the covers, right? You know, the cover's been out for the past couple of days or so. Ironically, they got leaked the day I was coming back from my past vacation last week. I was literally on the plane in Charlotte, North Carolina, on my American Airlines flight back to Jacksonville, literally about to leave the gate, right before the flight attendants say, hey, you got to put your phone on airplane mode. Literally, as right before they're doing that, we're right in the middle of them doing that, I see the leaked cover, the deluxe cover, one with Coach Sig and all the other characters on the cover and whatnot, the players and the mascots and whatnot. I saw that and immediately did my tweet and then put my phone in airplane mode and then enjoy the rest of my flight down here to Jacksonville. So I did see that when it happened. So that was the first thing that got leaked officially, at least recently. Then from Mob 3, P. Nikos, somehow knowing this information, but, you know, knowing PD has a lot of people he knows and higher places. But P. Nikos, a couple of days ago, reports that Kirk Herbstreit, one of the more legacy commentators who's been with the game, and of course you know him of Chris Fowler on the ABC primetime games of the SEC mainly now. But yeah, so Kirk, of course, he also, by the way, does Thursday Night Football for the NFL on Amazon. But anyway, Kirk usually does the games. He was doing it back when the game was still being produced, back in the late or the early 2000s, right? So he's been around with the game as a commentator for a very long time. But it was announced or leaked out, or I guess, confirmed, I guess, from Pinecos, that Kirk Herbstreit is no longer in the game. At least that may be what you think is going on. I'll get to my rumor, not rumor, theory here in a minute, but he will not be in the game. So Chris Fowler and that, I guess, big game broadcast team will have a new member. So at least that we know. And all the other stuff is mainly speculation, but again, we'll get into that in a minute if I remember. But on top of that, and of course, there were other leaks that came out that were official. So, like, for example, in Dynasty Mode and in Road to Glory, NIL will be a factor. NIL will be a part of Dynasty and recruiting, and also in Road to Glory. I'm sure the live stream tonight, the deep dives will go into that. That is cool. How it will be implemented, how it's going to work. Of course, judging by the deluxe cover, I'm assuming there will be something to do with vehicles being provided, certain services. That is all cool. That is great. Another thing that was leaked out is, I believe, a new coaching, at least in Dynasty, a new coach pathway, if you will. I guess I don't remember the direct term, if you will. Off the top of my head, I played the game a lot, so I should know this. But yeah, I guess the coach archetype. Yeah, I think it's what I think it's called the Rainmaker or something like that. I don't know. Maybe they'll explain it, but apparently that's part of if you have EA membership or something. So I don't know. We'll see what they say about it later. But I think off the top of my head, that is the majority. I guess for Road to Glory as well, there will be new positions finally. So for those of you who want to be a punter, a kicker, I guess you can be that, or an offensive lineman, you can choose that now. New equipment too, judging by the photos here. It's the folks who are obsessed with equipment. Yes, you can see there on the top screen there with Malachi Tony, the hanging mouthpiece. I'll be a part of it. Looks like some new helmet designs, looks like, or at least new versions of helmets, or at least they're adjusting the CGI for the helmets and whatnot. So that is good. Good step there for EA and the equipment crew, at least the equipment gang. Those of you who are obsessed with that, which I understand it. I'm not, I myself don't care about it that much, but it is cool to have it provided to you, especially if you are one of those that pay attention to it and like that type of stuff. But also, I believe through some of the leaks, and this is not necessarily confirmed fully, but EA did mention that they are going to have new presentation. So what it turns out is that the rumors are out there. I guess we can start get into the speculation on my half and others that we might be getting something very similar to Madden in terms of the multiple broadcast scoreboards, right? If you played Madden last year or within the last few years, they started to do that, where they will have different style of scoreboards along that are sort of in association with the broadcast teams. So there's a real possibility you might be getting 3 different broadcast teams tonight in this year's game. That will be revealed tonight. Not confirmed, just my speculation. I think that's the case here. I think we are going to be getting broadcast crew-oriented scoreboards to reflect the type of game you're getting. So whether it's a primetime game, a 3:30 kickoff, or a noon kickoff, I think that's what you're getting. And I believe in conjunction as well with the college football playoff too. I think that will also be a part of it as well. I think that is more likely coming. Not confirmed, just my own speculation and other speculation on that. There is also, again, this is me speculating here, but based on some stuff we are hearing from some of these leakers and scripters, that the menus in the game, like for example the Dynasty menus, while yes, they're obviously way better and much more beautiful looking, if you want to go that route, much more pleasing, if you will. I guess you want to use a better term. Than what you saw in NCAA 14, they were still consistent, very much so in the realm of the college football revamp. Those of you who dive into that type of stuff. So, yes, the menus in the last 2 games have been very similar to what you had in the past. The rumors are out there, and this is partially my speculation as well, is that the menus are going to change. There will be a big overhaul. And my theory is, and this has not been confirmed out there, but my theory is, my suspicion, is that the menus that we're going to be getting in this game, the way the user interface is going to work, is that it's probably going to be more in line with Madden than the last 2 college football games. Now, I know that sounds bad. Again, I know a lot of you go, oh, no, this is not turning into another, this is going to be a Madden reskin. I don't think so. I think what it's going to be what we've had the last few years, but it's going to be more in line with what Madden is right now. Now, my hope is that's all it's going to be. It's going to be the way the menus have looked recently. They're just going to be more polished, if you will. They're going to add some new stuff to it and make it a little bit more closer to Madden, but not all the way towards Madden, which, look, if that is the case, I would not like that. Because even though, yes, as a Buccaneers fan, I'm not the biggest fan of Madden's menus. They are very confusing. It's very busy. So I hope they do keep it simplistic enough to where it looks good and it's not, look, all I'm trying to say here is that I get why they are probably going to overhaul the menus. I get why they are going to change that. I know some folks don't want this to look like Madden, but my assumption is it will look closer to that, but not fully towards Madden. It will not be basically a Madden reskin. It will be just geared towards Madden. It will be more aligned with Madden, but will not be just a Madden reskin with the menus. So that I think has been out there for the past couple of days now. So I do believe that is going to happen. I could be wrong on that, but that's my speculation. Now, as for what's happening with Kirk Herbstreit, again, this is my theory. This is nothing I've heard out there. In fact, I might be the only one that's even saying this. I was thinking about this, by the way, when I was going for my run earlier. I was just kind of thinking to myself, why would Kirk Herbstreit be leaving Madden or leaving, college football all of a sudden? Like, he's been a big supporter of the game so far, and I mentioned that on Twitter. That he's been a big supporter of the game. He was in the he was in the original run of the series, and he was in the last two games, right? So what happened? I have two possible theories here, and they do both sort of, I guess, they both intertwine with each other. The first theory is just he's no longer working with EA, and that his contract expired, and that the contract that EA had the last couple of years was a continuation of the one he had previously. They just said, "Hey, Kirk, we know, yes, this is technically a new game, but your old contract is still valid. Would you want to come back for the next 2 years? Then we'll make a decision." That's part one. That I believe is the first possible reason as to why he is leaving. Just his contract expired. That's all it is. And he's not coming back, and maybe next year he'll be back, and you're just, working some stuff out. So that is the first possible theory, is that his contract, Kirk Herbstreit's contract with VA, expired. That's probably the more likely case of what's happening here. But I think what this is actually, at least in my opinion, is actually a combination of that and also my second theory. And my second theory is that with Kirk's contract possibly expiring, if it was indeed a grandfathered in contract with the when the game was still being produced back 10 years ago, that Kirk is still with the company. He's still working with EA, but he's no longer with college football. But he is still working with EA. He's just with Madden now, right? Like I mentioned earlier, for those of you who don't know, Kirk does do the Thursday night football games on Amazon without Michaels, right? So it is possible that with Kirk Herbstreit's contract expiring, EA maybe said, "Hey, do you want to work with Madden instead? Do you want to try something different? Do you want to go do Madden? Do you want to go and instead of having Charles Davis and Brandon Gaudin doing the Thursday night package, I believe, for Madden, if I recall correctly, instead of having Charles Davis doing that, let's do a switch." Because remember, if those of you who don't know, Charles Davis is replacing Gary Danielson at CBS because Gary is retired now. He's no longer working with Brian Essler for the Big Ten on CBS. So because now Charles Davis has come back to college football, I would not be surprised if what happened here is, again, Kirk's contract last 2 years expired. You go to Kirk, say, "Hey, we are proposing a switcheroo. You go do NFL and Madden and be a part of the Thursday night broadcast team on the game. Well, with that, we'll move Charles Davis over with either Reese Davis's crew and promote someone over with Fowler, which I guess I'm assuming will probably be Jesse Palmer, or we'll just bring in Charles Davis with Chris Fowler, or bring in someone else, maybe like a Dan Orlovsky or something. I don't know, who knows, but that I think is what's going on here. So my theory again is I think Kirk Herbstreit's contract, whether it was a grandfather contract or a 2-year contract, it's expired. So it is done. So my theory is that because of that, Kirk was probably presented with an idea of saying, "Hey, we can bring you on to Madden, have you do Thursday Night Football and replace Charles Davis, who might be moving over to college football and be with either Reese Davis's crew or whoever they're bringing on also in conjunction, I think, or with Chris Fowler, just being over for college football now and replace doing a little trade there." That is what I think is happening. I could be wrong on that. I could be totally wrong. Who knows? Maybe they are bringing in someone like a Dan Orlovsky or whatever to replace Kirk, and Kirk is just not working with VA anymore, and something maybe went down behind the scenes. I don't know. But that is my that is sort of a theory that is proposing a clean idea. Yes, there is a scenario where things, that we don't know have happened and it got really ugly. Who knows? But my theory is, again, Kirk is now, he's just working with the Madden team now. He's working over there with them, and they basically did an internal trade where college football gets Charles Davis, Madden gets Kirk Herbstreit to do the Thursday night games. This is nothing I have confirmed. This is nothing I have heard from anyone. This is something that I have not heard from any of the chat rooms I'm in or anything like that. This is just a theory that I came up this morning when I was going for my run, okay? It happens sometimes. When you start, mentally by yourself out running, whatnot, and you start thinking about this stuff, random stuff like this. So that's my theory. What's going on here? I could be wrong. Maybe it is a situation where Kirk is just not working with EA anymore, and maybe there's other stuff we're not privy to. But my personal theory, and one that makes sense to me, is that he's just doing Madden. Now, he is doing the Madden video game series now, and there was a trade with him and Charles Davis now doing he is now part of the college football team, working with them, which would, again, reflect more or less real life because Charles Davis is now working with CBS doing their college football coverage now because, again, Gary Danielson retired. So I could be wrong on that, but even if I am wrong, I still believe elements of this are probably true, that Charles Davis could be a part of the college football commentating crew if they are bringing in like a third crew, and maybe EA decided to reach out to someone else to replace Kirk. Maybe it's like Dan Orlovsky or like Booger McFarlane or something like that, or anyone like that. I wouldn't be too surprised. So who knows? But that has definitely been something that, a lot of folks are wondering as to what happened there. But that's just my theory. Now, speaking of people being added to the game, what sort of makes me believe this is more and more likely is it was leaked out a couple of days ago that Holly Rowe, the Assembly reporter who works with Kirk and Fowler during the primetime games on ABC and during the college football playoff, if she is in the game to a certain extent, probably just a voice only out, I'm assuming, like a voice over rule, and not actually seeing a CGI Holly Rowe in the game. That has been out there, and the reason why that's out there is because a lot of these YouTubers and whatnot, there are, I think right now, currently playtesting the game, or at least have gotten, probably leaked images of, or even footage of this being out there, or at least information being leaked to them. So that also makes me wonder that there might be some credence to the rumors of not only us getting multiple broadcasting teams, but also getting potentially these silent reporters, right? Maybe not everyone, but at least we're getting Holly Rowe being a part of it. So that is also kind of intertwined with this whole, situation with the commentating teams. Then, of course, the other stuff that's been out there as well that has been confirmed is, dynamic weather coming to the game. So if you're wondering what that means, it's just when a game starts out, like maybe it starts raining during the game, whatnot. Though I will say, I'm hoping it's not too much like Madden, because I did find the rain in Madden to be a little bit too difficult. So hopefully, like EA will provide you sliders. So if you don't want it, you cannot use it. Hoping that is the case. Maybe they'll do that and like future like title updates or whatever. So hopefully EA did not go like full overblown like they did with Madden and go, hey, here's a heavy rain game. You literally can't win this game because it's heavy raining. So hopefully they don't do that, because my experience in Madden with my Buccaneers, that did not go very well. So hopefully they don't do that. But maybe they will, and maybe it's just something you have to get used to. But that is a possibility. Other things here. Look, we'll move on here in a minute here. I know this is taking a lot of time here. I think most of you are here for the college football coverage, not the video game stuff. But look, this is a big thing for me, so I'm just putting it out there. I know it's a big situation for you guys too. Well, not a big situation, but a big thing for you guys too. But as we wrap up, of course, we'll have the dynamic weather stuff. Now, at least with me, again, like I mentioned before, in the past, I would love to see other customization come to Dynasty, like being able to shrink and expand the playoff when you want to, more flexibility with custom scheduling, mainly with being able to pick the times of your games, especially if you want certain games, do primetime games and whatnot. That would be nice for that to happen. I think a lot of us would agree on that. Also, being able to pick either before the season starts in Dynasty or during it, or maybe during that week, having which crowd theme you want. That would be cool. So maybe you want, if you're like, for example, if you're a Penn State fan, you want to do like multiple whiteout games. Well, yes, that's not realistic, but look, it's a video game. You can do that. It doesn't have to. Not everything in this game and EA Sports College Football 27 has to reflect real life, right? I mean, literally, they're doing mascot mashup there on the middle middle image there. So maybe that's a sign that they are going full. Well, maybe not full gloves off, but mostly gloves off and saying, hey, you guys want customization? Go right ahead. We'll give you guys customization. Hopefully that's the case, because if that is the case and they let us do a lot more customization than they have in the last 2 games, even more than the previous games back 10 years ago, that'll be freaking fantastic. It's not likely, but who knows? One can dream. So again, tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central, all of this information here on College Football 27 and with Madden too. So, if you're an NFL fan like me, you may stick around for that. I'm assuming they'll probably do college first and then move on to Madden. I'm assuming they'll probably do that, but who knows? Maybe they'll do vice versa and whatnot. But anyway, yeah. So if you're wondering when this stream is happening, 8 o'clock tonight Eastern, 7 o'clock Central. Again, based on where you live, you figure it out with the time zones. Again, it is on Madden's YouTube channel. So this is not on the College Football YouTube channel for EA. Maybe they'll post stuff there, there later tonight. Maybe like the individual clips of the live stream, but it looks like this will be on Madden, their YouTube channel only. So just so there's no confusion there. Just so you know. So College Football 27, again, it comes out July 9th. I believe the earliest folks can get it is, I believe, July 2nd, so right before 4th of July. So, how about that? College Football 27 news. Finally getting here. I had a feeling it was coming pretty soon. So, how about that? Let's see here. Moving right along again, for those of you who are new here. Again, we usually don't spend that much time on video games, but because it is college football and because I care about it and a lot of you guys do care about it, I'll cover it here. So, yeah, very excited for tonight. I'll be in the chat with you guys. I'll be watching along with you guys and probably playing the video game as well while listening to it. So, yeah, tonight I think is going to be a very good night. Based on what folks are saying, look, if Bordeaux is saying that, and look, knowing that him and some of these other YouTubers have had access to a lot of this information for over a month now, probably, if what they're saying on, the X, Twitter, Instagram, whatnot, YouTube, if they're saying that, hey, all this stuff they're revealing right now is nothing near what they're going to reveal tonight, unless that's just them doing a whole psyop and it's, to kind of, I'm going to say brainwash you, but to kind of make you sort of get really excited, but again realize, oh, it's minor things. Who knows? Now, look, if it's coming from someone like Bordeaux, who I do trust, he has earned my trust. Okay, so I feel pretty good that we're gonna be having a very good night tonight. I think a lot of us should be excited. Anyways, moving right along. Again, we'll be doing an extra pod tomorrow. So if you're wondering, like I mentioned a couple weeks ago, about my thoughts on the Mandalorian and Grogu, we'll get those at some point this week. Don't worry, we'll do that. I have been very silent on it. Silent on it for a reason. I have some thoughts on the movie. Yes, I saw it a couple weeks ago, and let's just say it was an experience. It was definitely an experience. It's a movie that exists. You want to use use the old phrase there from the YouTuber Shay Frillis. Yeah, it's a movie that exists. That's all I can say right now. Not that anyone really cares now because it's been out for like a month now, but don't worry, we'll talk about it tomorrow on the extra pod. I got some thoughts on it and definitely some opinions on it for sure. But yeah, we'll cover all of that and all of the other non-football related stuff tomorrow on the extra pod. So we'll do that tomorrow. By the way, that will be on Spotify only, by the way. So if you're wondering where I'm going to be at, they'll be over there. Let's some water real quick, and we'll finish up with two record projection. Texas on deck here. Next. So the Texas Longhorns. I just talked about Sark a little bit ago, right? And him and Joey McGuire's little beef there. Now we'll talk about their team record projection, how they're going to do this year. Well, last year was, I'm not going to say it was a total disappointment. Yes, it looked pretty scary when they were, they start out the year, 2-2, I believe, going into that game against Oklahoma, and they won. I believe it was actually 3-2, not 2-2. But anyway, so yes, that was pretty bad last year for sure, and that was definitely not reassuring that the team started out the way it did, losing to Ohio State the way they did. Now, granted, that wasn't the disaster I think a lot of folks are making it out to because Ohio State's a really good team last year. Granted, yes, the Florida loss does look pretty bad, even though early in the year, Florida still had a lot of, hope, and, it was early in the year still, and it was at home. So, yes, the season last year did not go the way people thought it was going to go, given all the hype of Arch and whatnot. But I think this year's different. Again, much like speaking of Florida, it sounds like I'm once again doing the whole, you're going to fall for it again, right? Pick Texas to win the national championship, go up 15-0 or 16-0, beating every single team 100-0. I'm not doing that, okay? I'll reassure you, I'm not picking them to go undefeated. But their best case scenario, baby, one loss. Hint, hint, wink, wink. But anyway, their schedule here, I guess I don't have a graphic for it, but I'm sure most of you, if you're a Texas fan, you know their schedule. So they have a G5 team in state, Texas State. J.G. Kinney, I believe, is the head coach there. J.G. Kinney, they were at Texas State. Very underrated, by the way. I'm not saying they'll pull up the upset, but who knows? It is a local hot spot. Just saying, your eyes kind of perk up there a little bit when you see any of these, sneaky G5 teams, on your schedule. So Texas State, we'll see. That's definitely a game that I will be watching. Maybe not the entire game, but I'll be paying attention to on the old YouTube TV more likely. And then September 12th, week 2 at home. Ohio State's coming to town. It's a night game, unlike last year when it was a silly big noon kickoff. That's definitely going to be a big ticket there. Certainly going to be, I don't know for sure it's going to be a 1 versus 2 like we all thought it was going to be last year, but it's definitely going to have that feel again. It's definitely going to be a game of the century type vibes here. Even though, yes, it's early in the year, but nothing wrong with calling games at least of that caliber, a game of the century. Then after that, you get another in-state G5 school, and then it gets, your SEC schedule starts at Tennessee versus Oklahoma, Florida at home, Ole Miss. It's gonna be a tough one, though it is at home, so you need to feel a little bit better about it. Then you have a win with Mississippi State. No fear there. At Missouri, that wouldn't really scare me that much. At LSU, that is concerning a little bit, given it is on the road. Arkansas, that wouldn't scare me that much. You should be a pretty big favorite in that. And then you also have the rivalry game at Texas A&M on Black Friday. 2 years in a row now. That's actually interesting. On Black Friday there at A&M. And the last time you were there, you guys won. So who knows? Maybe that's just the way it goes. You guys, you guys go 3-0 there, and since you guys have been back in the SEC. I think that's how it's went, right? You guys were have not lost yet since you guys have been in the conference. But anyway, based on the schedule, based on what you have come back, right? The offense and Cam McClellan being there, and probably with some others, and of course you have Arch being there, along with the other receivers who have been there as well with Wingo. Not to mention the defense too. With, by the way, reminder, Will Muschamp back as defensive coordinator at Texas. For those of you who have forgotten, yes, a old face at a old familiar location there. So that is pretty cool to see Will Muschamp back. So with all that being said, and my faith in Sark, at least my blind faith in Sark, unless the all-out disaster happens, which I think Texas is at least in my opinion, a disaster-proof roster. I think Texas is not look, nothing is official, right? Even at the worst-case scenario, which is, I guess I'll go ahead and say 9-3. A 9-3 Texas team of this schedule, at least this year, maybe not in the past years, a 9-3 Texas with the SEC schedule they have, and given their non-conference schedule with Ohio State, 9-3 should get you in the playoff, I think. At least I would assume so. So worst case 9-3. I guess actually I should probably bring up the graphic here. I totally forgot. I was getting into the zone where I was getting ready to start going over the graphic that is on the screen right now. So apologies for that. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Spotify, this won't matter to you. It's no necessarily big deal. You guys won't see the graphic unless you watch on YouTube. Let me get that pulled up real quick here. Had it up earlier, almost had it up earlier. So let me see here. I think this might be it. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So the best case for Texas, 9-3, and again, based on their schedule, I think that's going to have to be in the playoff. 11-1, best case scenario. I know that sounds like, man, that sounds pretty, pretty simple to put that there. I mean, look at their schedule, Josh. You know, you have Ohio State on there. You have Tennessee on the road. You have Oklahoma. You have Florida. You have Ole Miss. You have LSU, Texas A&M. I agree with all that. But I also can't disagree, at least I do agree, that this team is, for all intents and purposes, at least a program and a team that I believe is somewhat disaster proof. Now, grant you, yes, we do have examples of teams that have been disaster. At least we thought were not disaster proof, then ended up being, or at least rephrase that. At least we've had teams in the past that we thought were disaster proof that were not disaster proof. So your A&M in 2022 with Jimbo, your Florida State in 2024. So yes, those examples are out there in a post. Florida State 2024 and Texas A&M in 2022, I believe 2023 actually. Yes, I will acknowledge that those examples exist. I do agree with that. And yes, that game against Texas State, I know it doesn't. You should be worried about that, but my eyes do perk up a little bit seeing them on your schedule, knowing how successful they have been under their coaching staff there. So even with all of that, all of those potential worry signs there, the schedule and the fact that in this post Florida State 2024 world, that not every single team is immune anymore because of the portal and NIL and all of these different personalities. But just with guys like Arch Manning, Ryan Wingo, Ryan Niblett, Colin Simmons at the defensive end, and you have guys like Trevor Gooseby, right? Just all of these players out there, including the new additions like Cam Coleman and Hollywood Smutters. I just find that hard to believe. And again, I know this, it sounds like I'm copping out, and it's like, oh, I know, of course you're going to say that because, and it's Texas, and it's Steve Sarkisian and whatnot. He's you're a Texas show. I'm not a Texas show. Okay, I did not go to Texas. I don't live in Texas. Maybe someday I will. Who knows? But even with all of that, I cannot deny that this team, at least in my opinion, does not feel like it's a team that could be a disaster. I think this team is a disaster-proof team. So that's why their best case scenario was 11-1, worst case scenario is 9-3, and their most reasonable, in my opinion, 10-2. Look, you can lose in any of these games. You can lose to Ohio State. You can lose to Tennessee even. Look, Tennessee on the road early in the year, you can lose that game. And very similar to last year, kind of ironic that Texas could potentially be 3-2 going into that game against Oklahoma. Now, do I expect Oklahoma to be undefeated like they were last year going into the Red River shootout? Probably not. I'm not fully expecting that, unlike last year where the ingredients were there for sure. This year, I really can't say that. But for Texas being 3-2 going into that game again for the second straight year, that's not impossible to think. I know a lot of folks want to deny that. I know a lot of folks want to assume, oh, that was last year's team. That was Archie's first year out as a starter, and it took a little bit for him to get adjusted. That is all true, but again, even in a 9-3 scenario, you could start out 3-2. Not impossible to think. So just put it out there now that a 3-2 Texas team, again, heading into Dallas for the Red River Shootout, is not impossible. Again, I know a lot. That was not my original prediction from last year. That was, I believe, Ryan Brown from the Next Round Live, and of course Josh Pate kind of stole it. Just called what it is. Even though I'm sure he probably got permission to use it, but it just looks like you're stealing it. Even though I think a lot of people know you didn't. But anyway, a 3-2 Texas this year shouldn't shock you. But look, is it likely? No. But again, Ohio State week 2, and you get Tennessee before Oklahoma. I know. Yes, there's a bye week in between that, but getting Tennessee early on in the year, and look, go ask Georgia last year. That was not a. Look, judging by the scoring, if you watched the game, that was a very entertaining game. And Georgia had a lot of issues stopping Tennessee last year, even though that Tennessee team last year was a limited team, even though they weren't bad. It's just I don't think that Tennessee team was even up to the level of the years before the team the year prior. And obviously not near the level of, especially on offense, as Hendon Hooker year. So that game at Tennessee, just something to think about. That is not something that is not a team that I would be penciling in a win for Red River. The Red River shootout there on October 10th. So yeah, Texas best case scenario again. To recap, Best case 11-1, worst case 9-3, which is be about the same as last year, and then most reasonable 10-2. So again, yes, I know it sounds like I'm giving Texas the benefit of the doubt here, but they've earned it with Sark, especially the past couple of years. I do not sound like I was kind of Russian accent there. I do not believe that this Texas team is a disaster team. I think they are somewhat disaster proof to a certain extent. Could be wrong on that. Look, if there's a lot of injuries here and a lot of these key guys get injured, and maybe this schedule is a little more, a little more difficult because of that. Who knows? But I'm going to give Sark the benefit of the doubt here. I think in any scenario, they're going to be just fine. And I think a 9-3 record will probably put you in the playoff, more likely. And that's it for the show. How about that? Around 50 minutes long. A little bit longer than I thought we were going to go, but that's okay. We'll be back tomorrow, either with a, I guess we could do another show tomorrow, but probably not likely. Probably just an extra pod, because there is certainly some things we can talk about. Of course, I might do a video tomorrow reacting to the college football news, so I guess there will be a breaking news video. We haven't done one of those in a while. So until technically next Tuesday for a traditional show like this. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy the NBA Finals. That started yesterday. Congrats to the Knicks. To all the fans up there in New York. But so enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll be back tomorrow with an extra pod on Spotify only, by the way. And maybe a reaction video to the college ball video game news. We'll post that tomorrow, maybe if I remember. But until next Tuesday, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care. We'll